Welcome to the Planning for Life podcast with certified financial planner professional Russell Jacobs and financial life advisor Carl Coolidge. Carl and Russell will share creative strategies and ideas for overcoming challenges in your personal and financial life. Inevitably, life happens, and we will empower you to reach your destination. Thanks for joining us. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to another Planning for Life podcast with Carl Coolidge. Today, we are going to break down some 401k tools, not only the ones that Carl talks to the 401k participants and the team talks to them about, but also some other tools that he has found and that the team has talked to 401k participants about that can really just overall help them live a more successful financial life. So, Carl, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
All right. So as we were preparing for the podcast, you said that there's two primary tools that when you are meeting with participants or going through a review or even going through some enrollment stuff that you use. Let's start with those first two tools.
Okay. Obviously in our retirement plan, our secure retirement planning process, our focus is on employee education. And so we really think that's what differentiates a lot of advisors from others, is really having that focus on that education piece because, funds are funds, markets go up and down. You've got to look at plan structure. You've got to look at these educational pieces. So we explored, okay, what can we find that's a little more personal to clients? Because all of the vendors or companies these days are, getting better and really focusing time and money on not only apps, obviously, because that's where everyone goes these days, but their websites to make them more informative and a little more customized to participants. And so there's been a trend, and you hear the term financial wellness that gets used quite a bit. And that what they're trying to do is really turn that into a conversation of overall financial wellness, are all of your different pieces of your financial situation in good order. But then part two is really looking at translating these dollars into typically monthly income streams or income replacement calculation, because that's, again, how most of us work, right? Is we look at monthly budget, monthly salaries, whatever it may be. So I say all that to set up that, first tool we really use when we're doing enrollments or doing education is what we call our Paycheck Analyzer. And so we get a feed from our, the employer will actually look at the individual of what their paycheck looks like. So their federal tax withholding, their state withholding, if they have any other benefits come out, their actual check is plugged into the software we have. And then we're able to see, okay, Matt, for example, you make X, here are all your deductions, and here's really what you have left over each month. So when we're sitting down with that participant, we're looking at their paycheck, not just a generic example that you can look at online or something you can Google along those lines. So when we do that, it not only shows them their check, but then shows the different percentages that can come out. So we can look at if you do 5%, if you do 7%, if you do 10 or 15%, how is it going to affect not only your pre-tax income, but what kind of deduction does that cause to your paycheck? And so we found it to be very powerful because the employees like to really see, okay, this is personal to me. This is how it really is going to affect my check. And then there's also a piece on there that shows exactly what it will look like over time with assumed rates of return. So particularly with younger participants, employees, they want to see, okay, if I start doing, 3, 4, 10% when I'm 26 years old and I get X% rate of return, what does it look like? So it gives them just some quick projections, which, makes them feel, gives them a target to shoot for. So that's been, I think, a really powerful tool on the front end when we're doing that education, because it really helps them understand, how it's going to affect their check, how they need to be saving, what they need to consistently do, or if they're starting at a lower percentage, it shows them what they can increase to over time.
Now, do you find that your participants are pleasantly surprised at how little it impacts their overall thing because it's pre-tax?
I do. I really do. I think, what I've seen is just the differences in percentages. They don't realize how small of a difference that really makes on their paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
You'll show someone 5% and then they'll look at 8% and say, well, wow, it's not really that different on my check. So it allows them to go ahead and get in at a higher percentage, which of course is the name of the game, right? We're trying to get participants to save as much money as they can as early as they can. So they'll, be on track for a successful retirement. So it's really a nice way to show them, like I say, their personal situation. And it really is eye opening when they see it's not that big a difference.
Well, I am glad that you take your participants through that, because it really, I love the fact that it's eye opening, that people can save more than they think they can save, because that really is the big picture name of the game. So that was the first tool. So the Paycheck Analyzer. What's the second tool that you use?
Second tool is called a track report that we use, and again, a software we invested in. And what it does is really more on the back end, or for a lot of our clients, we'll do this on an annual basis, where again, we'll get information from their payroll side of what they're contributing, and then also their existing balance. So how it really works is it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about this financial wellness side, where you're really looking at how is it going to impact them in retirement? What kind of income replacement are they ultimately going to have to be able to be on track? And so there's several assumptions that are made. So it looks into obviously your current age, your current account balance, what level of income replacement do we want? And so again, a little bit on that, there's a lot of discussion that you'll need somewhere between 70 and 100% income replacement in retirement. Again, I won't get specific, but it just relates to everyone's situation. So we can set the software to run at a 75% replacement or an 80% income replacement. So that's one of the inputs. It also does account for Social Security, because I know there's a lot of debate or question if Social Security be around, especially for some of these younger, participants. But, we think it will be there. It may be in a little different format, but we think certainly a portion will be there. So we include that. And again, for a lot of these individuals, it will be a big piece of their, it's probably roughly 40% of their income that will be replaced in retirement. So that's another component. And then there's an assumed rate of return calculation. So we try to use a fairly conservative rate of return that we think they can get over time. And that comes up with, the calculation. So really what it says is, okay, Matt, you are 30 years old, you're deferring X dollars, here's your current account balance. And it shows a chart of either basically you see red, which is not good, or you see green. And this says, with what you're saving, you're on track to reach your income goal, to reach your income replacement number. So if you're trying to replace 75% of your income with what you're saving, what you're making, and these assumed rates of return, you are on track. And so the other thing that it can do is it can be a pleasant surprise to an employee, or it can be obviously very disheartening, because it will show, like I say, either you're on track or you're not on track. And what I preface it when we show it to everyone is, this doesn't include any other outside accounts that you may have, IRAs or non-qualified accounts. It doesn't include your spouse's accounts. It doesn't include any pensions or any other things you have. Now we can plug that into the software, but what we're really trying to do is just get participants to really look at their situation and understand, okay, here's where I stand based on the information they have. And I've had a few that'll say, whoa, I have, some other things that I'm going to have for retirement. I say, fantastic. So we go and plug those in, and then we're able to say, okay, now we've got a more true sense of what your financial or retirement picture looks like. So it's really, I think it can be, even though it may start negatively, it can be viewed very positively because we're really helping them dig into their financial situation to see where they stand. And so I've just found this tool to be very powerful because it gets the conversation going, or it lets people know, hey, I'm doing the things that I need to do. And again, it changes every year depending on what markets have done, what your account balance have done, if you decided to take a loan out of your 401k. So it's got a lot of moving parts, but it's also a very accurate depiction of what your outcome may look like.
Are you able to take into account Social Security?
Yes, that is part of the calculation we use. As I referenced earlier, there's a lot of discussion and debate on that, but we do factor it in because it is going to be a big part of a lot of participants. Retirement, probably roughly 40%. And again, it depends on some factors, but that's usually around the number. But I think, is going to be here in some format. And so it's definitely worth including when we're doing those calculations. And sometimes we'll have someone say, okay, I want it completely removed just so they can see what it will look like without, which is fine. Again, the point is to have the conversation and to get them really understanding their personal situation more. And that's the key, is just very personal and customized to them. It's not a generic, you save this, you do that, and here's how much money you're going to have. And while those tools are okay, I think it's people want to know how it's really going to affect them individually, not just on a generic basis.
Right. What are some of the other things that you bring up? You had brought up apps early on in the podcast. Are there any apps or techniques or other things that when you're sitting down with somebody and they're really looking to you as their financial guide, their person to be able to I don't know, you're the advice giver. What are some of the other things that you talk about with the 401k participants to help them be financially successful?
I think we talk about, budget or expenses a lot, because certainly that's what drives everything. So we'll give them recommendations on, there's certain apps that you may want to explore to see if it's a fit for you. It can be as simple as, are you balancing your checkbook? Do you utilize Quicken or things like that to keep up with it? That helps you monitor your cash flow. Again, these apps that, are the budget ones out there that you have. And again, everybody responds differently on how they interpret things. So I think there's a lot of different apps that can help with that. We also talk about credit card maintenance a lot. As you know, that's a big issue in America and consumer debts. And so there are some different websites that can give you a little more help and information on that, or even find ways to help lower some of your interest rates that you're paying. So those are two big ones, is, expenses, budget, and then also related to credit card. And then, it'll span into other questions depending on their situation, where, we always talk about the need for planning, whether that be a formal fee-based kind of planning that we do, or whether it be find some tools, again, online that can give you some basic planning overviews, because that will also incorporate, if you have, what needs you have for life or disability insurance and other things, just to round out your financial picture. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the vendors or those companies that provide the retirement plans have gotten a lot better on integration with total benefits. So there's several tools where you can kind of go through a basic app and say, okay, here's what I have. And then it'll show you your gaps or what you may need, which, we always want people to do, because again, savings is one piece of your financial plan or of your retirement. But if some other things happen, then you can't save. So you want to make sure you have all those pieces in the right place.
When you get done sitting down with somebody, what is your goal when you're going through these tools and having these conversations? What is your goal? What should the participant feel like, or behavior change, or anything like that?
I mean, really, I want them to, be able to begin saving is first and foremost. We meet with participants of all ages, and so it's a different conversation depending on the age that we're talking to. But I want them to feel like they actually have a track to run on at that point, that they're saying, okay, if I do these things, I'm going to be in a pretty good position at retirement. And so we want them to have the feel good of, okay, I'm understanding what I have. I'm understanding my options. I'm understanding how the plan works, but I also want to really feel good that if I begin to save this amount of money, or if I save and I increase it over time, I'm going to be in a really good spot for retirement. So that's what I really hope for. And I really hope for additional questions where they really want to round out their entire financial situation, because, what's the biggest concern that people have in marriages is finances, right? And so if we can help ease some of that concern, then that's going to make them not only more productive workers, but also have a much better marriage, home life. And if they can feel like they're taking care of some of these things and they were able to bounce it off a professional like us and understand that, yes, what you're doing is a good thing, then that's the impact we want to make. We really want them to feel like they are on track to do the things that they need to do to be successful in retirement.
Is there anything I should have asked you, and as you're going through all of this stuff, anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
I don't think so related to that. I mean, it's, again, we harp on it, and I feel like I say it on every podcast, but, it's all about the planning process and having a rhyme or reason to what you're doing. I mean, clearly people need to save money. That's no big surprise. And you always want to take advantage of your company matching and things along those lines. But you really need to look at it in context of, is it going to be enough to get you where you want to go? If your employer has a 3% match and you do 3%, again, that's great. You're getting 6% of your income put away, but in all likelihood, that's not going to be enough to get you where you want to go. So you really got to look at your plan in a big picture, holistic way to say, okay, what do I really need to be doing to get on track? And can it be some lifestyle changes? And that's where these other apps for budgeting and, looking at expenses and just really monitoring your financial situation come into play, because, maybe you can stop doing X and Y. So it allows you to do A and B on this side. So it's just a combination of looking at the entire picture. And I think that's what the message I would leave with is, just look at it in a big picture format where you're covering everything. Because if one piece of your financial situation fails or doesn't work, then it can impact everything.
And if you are a 401k participant and you're listening to this and realize that you don't have somebody who's providing this level of education and service and support, please make sure that you reach out to Jacobs, Coolidge and Company. And Carl, would you mind sharing your contact info with us?
Yes, you can go to our website, jacobsandcoolidge.com, and you can find a lot of good information on us and the firm. And then you can also reach us at 912-265-2876. And yes, absolutely, we'd be happy to talk with you and really help give you some good information on planning for your future.
And this is the Planning for Life podcast. Make sure that you do take time to write stuff down, make a plan, create a budget, because those people who are able to successfully retire are the people who plan for retirement more than they plan for their normal vacations. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, click that subscribe now button below. And also, if you know somebody who really needs to hear this information, a fellow friend, family member, it's very, very easy to share this podcast with them. So make sure that you do that. So for everybody at Jacobs and Coolidge and Company, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Russell C. Jacobs III, Carl B. Coolidge, James Jacobs, and William Schwartz are registered representatives of and offer securities, investment advisory, and financial planning services through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC, Supervisory Office, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacobs, Coolidge & Company, LLC is not a subsidiary or affiliate of MML Investor Services, LLC, or its affiliated companies.